the Modi government has unveiled a list of 101 defense systems which are now in the negative import list, which means they will not be imported. Well, essentially, this is part of the government's efforts to boost indigenous manufacturing, what Prime Minister Narendra Modi had earlier called Make in India and now talks about Atmanirbharta. This is in line with that. To talk to me about this, I have Snehesh Alex Philip, who, as you know, covers defense for ThePrint. We essentially want to understand whether this will really promote Make in India, what does this list mean, and what are the big hits and misses, as Snehesh has also done a story today on our website, theprint.in. So do start sending in your questions right away. Snehesh, you seem to have become the most frequent guest on government matters, and you're also acing your mask game. Okay, so let's begin by talking about this list. What is this list? What does it tell us?
Well, this is a list of 101 items that have been that has an embargo date for import. So it's a negative import list,
right,
which means that as per the timelines that I mentioned, these items would not be imported in future. Remember that India continues to be one of the biggest defense importers in the world, and hence the aim of the government right from the time that they first came in 2014 has been on Make in India and to reduce this import bill. However, the import bill continues to be very large, and that is primarily because there is no defense ecosystem that is there in this country. Both actually I would say even at the government level as well as the private. So the government has now come out with this negative list, wherein which they've identified 101 items which they say will not be imported after specific dates that have been mentioned. So the dates vary from December 2020 to December 2025.
Right. So what are the various items, if you can just give us a sense of some of them?
Well, interestingly, I was glancing through the items yesterday, of course, after the initial stories and all. I realized that over 1/4 of these items are actually are actually manufactured in India only. They have not been imported for a very long time. So for example, and it was also surprising that some of the items mentioned in this list are also those items which are exclusively manufactured by India. For example, LCA Tejas is there. Now, the government saying that from December 2020, we will not import LCA Tejas and it would be manufactured domestically. I wonder, because it just doesn't make sense, because there is no LCA that has been imported
in any case.
Same also true goes for the light combat helicopter, which is in the works, and the HAL, that is a state in HAL, is still awaiting orders from the Defense Ministry. Now, plus there are many other items which have been mentioned which are already manufactured in India. For example, it talks about fast patrol boats. It talks about various corvettes. I don't remember the last time when India has actually gone in and ordered a corvette from abroad. You only had recently you had a deal with Russia under which 2 frigates were, have been ordered from Russia, and those 2 frigates are being manufactured there. But it was not because the Indians are not incapable of designing frigates, building frigates. The frigates have been built in India, but this was more of a government-to-government deal to keep the Russians happy. So it's quite surprising. The list has many of those such items which are already manufactured in India. They're not imported from outside. Well, if you're asking about misses, some of the 2 vital misses that immediately stood out was the fact that there was no mention of the light tanks. As you would be aware, and we've done the story, that the Indian Army is now interested in the lighter tanks, for use in the high altitude areas in mountainous regions like in Ladakh. Now the Russians have offered their light tanks, which is about 18 to 20 ton, the Sprut tanks. However, there is already a project that is undergoing in India, between a joint development project between DRDO and one of India's largest private player in defense sector, the L&T. The first prototype of this light tank is expected to be out in 18 months. So this was missing from the light tanks, was missing, which is an indicative that India could actually go in for imports of these light tanks. Maybe in a limited number, but eventually they would go in for import. Another important, drastic miss was the fact that there was no mention of the carbines. Remember that this particular list also mentions, the assault rifles of the 7.62 caliber rifles, which is the AK-203, which is supposed to be manufactured in India in a joint production with Russia. So the carbines is missing, and it is interesting because the Indian Army is already in the process of finalizing a deal with a UAE firm, Caracal. Now, if you remember that we had done this story about how the Indian small arms industry, which has come out with their own assault rifles, sniper rifles, light machine guns, and even carbines, are feeling left out, and it is quite, in the sense, I don't know how people look at it. I find it very amusing that India is going to buy, carbines of all places from a country like UAE.
Right. So, Snehesh, when you say there have been certain misses, one, of course, it indicates that there is openness to importing them, but does it also tell us that this list could be expanded going forward?
Of course, this list is not a permanent list. The list, as the time moves on, the list would be expanded, more items would be added to it. However, also remember that, while this is an import negative list, remember if there is an operational requirement that is there, the armed forces are not going to look at this list and say, this particular thing is not supposed to be imported and will not. So as per operational requirements, those imports will happen. Government to government deals will continue to take place. Emergency procurement will happen.
So, Snehesh, because we are trying to understand, let's just look ahead a little bit, and let's talk about how it's expected to. It's obvious that the move is to boost indigenous manufacturing, but to what extent can it give a boost to indigenous manufacturing and to make in India?
Well, there is no doubt about the fact that this is a very positive step, even if it's a very small step. Now, this is an announcement that has been made at the government level. One can really question whether, the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh himself had to make an announcement. This could have been an office memo being sent out to the industry, put up on their website. However, the announcement has been made. This is a small step as far as I look at it. And as I said earlier also, most of the items mentioned in this list are actually those which are already manufactured in India and are not imported from outside. However, the fact is that there has been specific directions that are being given. For example, in the sense of now you have, among the things mentioned are the lightweight howitzers. Remember, Rui, a few years back, we had bought about 140 odd M777 lightweight howitzers from the US. Now you have private players like the Bharat Forge, which have made lightweight howitzers on their own, and which is manufactured in India. So the fact that these lightweight howitzers have been put in a negative list and other artillery systems have been put in the negative list, gives confidence to the private players and those interested that yes, now these items will anyways never be imported.
Absolutely.
So the focus would be on domestic manufacturing of it. So this is a boost for the private players, at least from a psychological boost initially, and eventually the orders will come in.
Right. Okay, let's start taking some viewer questions. Imran, can you name a few items that have been included in the negative import list? I think you've already...
Yes, and do log on to our website under the defense section, read the print. The entire list has also been uploaded.
Yes. Saurabh Vyas, the Defence Ministry is pushing for indigenous defence manufacturing, but the defence budget is just about 2%. How are they going to work this out?
Well, the budget is used for defence procurement. So if the technology is available in India, if a system is available in India, the budget would be used to buy those systems in India rather than buy those systems from abroad.
Right. Tarush, won't it decrease the quality and increase the cost and time knowing the condition of Indian PSUs? But it's not necessarily just for PSUs.
It's not just the PSUs, and it's also private players, and there's no doubt about the fact that a lot has to be done. As far as quality is concerned, I don't think so in the army you ever take substandard items. Now, many of these items that have been mentioned are items which are functional and are needed and help, in a way keeping the soldier alive. Of course, there can be multiple allegations, but knowing how the procurement works in the armed forces, I can be sure that no substandard item which impacts the life of a personnel is bought in the armed forces.
Right. Abhishek Day, will India ever be able to afford to buy a fighter like the F-35 Lightning II?
Well, I don't know whether India really wants to buy the F-35, in the sense is thinking of buying the F-35 or not. But the fact is that India is already working on the fifth generation fighter aircraft. Earlier it was supposed to be in joint collaboration with Russia. However, now India has decided not to go with Russia and build its own fighter, the fifth generation fighter aircraft. Eventually the focus has to, I've been supportive of this Make in India right from the very beginning. I think eventually, I'll take the case of China, for example. China at one point of time was a big defense importer. It used to import items. From a defense importer, China has now become a defense exporter. So China is exporting, the weapon systems that have been bought. Well, you can accuse China of, re-engineering, Western and other products, and you can also accuse China of, intellectual theft and things like that. But the fact is that at the end of the day, China has become a defense exporter.
In fact, you did write a column.
Yes, I did
recently.
write my column Brahmastra on this. So there is no doubt about it. So eventually the focus has to be on self-reliance. The focus has to be on Make in India. And that is something that really needs to be worked upon. And however, sadly, the case is that, even ever since the Modi government has come to power, and the big ticket Make in India projects that I've spoken about has not really fructified. So you have a situation where a lot of noise is being made, a lot of words are being spoken. You currently have, the Defense Ministry celebrating this as Atma Nirbharta Week. But the fact is that the situation on the ground has to change.
Right. Tanay, what about research and development? After all, that is where Indian defense is lagging.
Absolutely, and Make in India, for me, Make in India just doesn't mean, getting a TOT from outside and, manufacturing it the same or assembling, assembling systems which are predominantly, from foreign countries. For Make in India to succeed, and this I've mentioned in my column also, it's also the responsibility of the government entities as well as the private players to invest in research and development. So that, and these systems, take a lot of time to mature. It's not that, for example, right now India is procuring 36 Rafale fighter jets from France. It's not that, the Dassault Aviation, out of the blue, sat up one fine night and decided to start manufacturing a fighter jet, and they manufactured in less than 1 year. It also went through a series of trials. It went through a design phase. So defense is a long-term game. So it is not meant for anyone who is there for the short-term gain.
Right.
So yeah.
Rishabh, in the orders for assault rifles, Indian companies weren't even considered. Are the armed forces at the foundation of it obsessed with foreign weaponry?
Well, I would not say it in as many words, but there is no doubt about the fact that the armed forces, have primarily focused and have preferred as they say, the Vilayati Mal, the foreign equipment. And that is a thinking that needs to change. And that thinking will get changed eventually when the Indian players, the domestic players, come up with products that are
match the standards,
that matches the standard globally. For example, recently, the CDS had General Bipin Rawat that made this comment in one of the TV interviews in interaction with the media that even if the GSQR, which is General Staff Quality Requirements, even if an Indian product meets 60 to 70% of the GSQR, it should be accepted. I think we are setting the bar really low here. The Indian Army, the Navy and the Air Force needs to be realistic when they set up, when they ask for specific requirements, and also, and the Indian company should meet those requirements. It should not, you can't really tell a soldier that, take this particular, use this particular weapon system, and it has 60 or 70% chance of saving you or, helping you. So it doesn't make sense. But however, I think it's a two-way street. So the armed forces will have to change the mindset, and so will the Indian defense industry. They have to invest in R&D, they have to deliver, they have to bring out quality products, be it through partnership with foreign companies, through transfer of technology or their own R&D. Eventually both have to come together.
Okay, I'll ask one last viewer question. This is from Hitesh R. Notial. Do you really believe that this type of step will help our armed forces? Because we all know that our domestic tech is not developed as compared to other countries in the world. Now, I know you said that there is no question of taking substandard equipment or defense systems as far as the armed forces are concerned, but just to sort of simplify the question a little bit, has the move come at a time when perhaps India's own indigenous defense manufacturing industry is not ready for it?
No, in the sense, of course, India is not ready for manufacturing, high-end technology items like a fighter jet and submarines. Of course, we need collaboration with foreign countries. However, let's say in the case of small arms, some of the Indian manufacturers, and I can name a few systems like, Triple S Defense, the PLR systems, they have come out with some, good assault rifles, sniper rifles, light machine guns, carbines, and eventually, and they are selling it to the, because there is no deal which is out there with the armed forces, they are selling it to the Central Armed Police Forces. So I think a lot of hand-holding has to be done also. For example, I keep speaking to these industry guys, and they say that, one of the things, even when they go out to sell their product, the foreign buyer looks at the product, he uses it, he likes it. And one question that he will always ask is, how much does your army, has army bought anything? So there has to be a hand-holding that has to be done from both sides. The private industry as well as the government entities, the DPSUs need to come together. They have to hold the services hand. The services have to hold the industry hand, and only then can this whole Make in India, Atmanirbharta, which is absolutely essential, can actually work.
So a couple of columns ago, you'd written about how this Make in India, Atmanirbharta, the Modi government needs to walk the talk. Do you think with this it has begun walking the talk?
Well, see, again, I've been, I'm sorry to be a little bit skeptical about things. I actually...
No, it's always okay to be skeptical as journalists.
And actually would, start believing in things and, looking at things when it starts functioning on the ground. Since 2014, as I mentioned, we've spoken about Make in India. It's actually, Make in India is a slogan given by the Modi government, but the Make in India initiatives were started in the UP also. So it's not just the last 6 years. So it's even before that. However, that still has not taken off very well, and India continues to be a very import-dependent country.
Well, once a journalist, always a skeptic, quite rightly so. But thank you, Snehesh, for walking us through this negative import list, what it means, and really what kind of an impact it would have on the push for Make in India. Thank you for sending in your questions and for watching Government Matters. Don't forget, today we are going to complete 100 editions of Off the Cuff. This is something we began a few years ago. Thank you so much for all your support and encouragement, and tune in this evening onto our YouTube channel. The 100th edition has a very special guest, best-selling author Amish Tripathi, in conversation with the Print's editor-in-chief, Shekhar Gupta.